The other ones are more fresh. Yes?
What's that calcium
Dipicolinate. Dipicolinate. Now, chapter 5, remember, you're only responsible for chemotherapy. So you have to know the antibiotics and you have to know them very well. There's not a lot of antibiotics, but what it is, you have to know well. And the definitions also that introduce the section. So for example, what are the organisms that are the prolific antibiotic producers, right? So for example, true or false, Streptomyces produces a lot of antibiotics. Is a major producer of antibiotics, right? That is, in fact, it's arguably, not arguably, it is by far the most prolific producer. Streptomycin, just remember streptomycin, that's a huge. And what type of organism is it? Do you remember? It's actinomycetes, exactly. So what are the three big producers? Actinomycetes, which include Streptomyces, molds, which include Penicillium, and other bacteria, but other than actinomycetes, that is, which include bacillus. You have to know the difference between broad spectrum and narrow spectrum, the difference between cidal and static. That's the introduction. As far as the antibiotics are concerned, please remember them not as specific which step do they target, but rather as the big block. So for example, you have to know all the cell wall inhibitors that we discussed. So cell wall inhibitors. We talked about protein synthesis inhibitors. Talked about cell membrane disruptors. In fact, it would have been easier if I just list them. So, know them as targets if you like. Here, the targets. Cell wall inhibition. Cell membrane. Proteins. Protein synthesis, that is. Nucleic acid synthesis, and anti-metabolites. Anti-metabolites. If you go back to the notes, in cell wall, where I talked about step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4, don't know them as such, know them as cell wall inhibitors. Cell membrane, there's only one. Protein synthesis, do not distinguish between 30 and 50. Please remember them as protein synthesis inhibitors. Nucleic acid synthesis, here you do have to differentiate between DNA and RNA. And for anti-metabolites, whenever I mentioned, you have to know that specific enzyme that they target. So, so what type of questions? I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because it's straightforward. I mean, you have to know the antibiotics and know them well. But some question would be, which of the following antibiotics targets, let's say, protein synthesis? Or which one of the following antibiotics targets nucleic acid synthesis? Alternatively, and not alternatively, you might get a question like this. Let me throw it at you.